In the picturesque landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, I found myself adopting a magnificent purebred husky. We named him Toby, but his presence was so grand and his personality so larger than life that we soon began referring to him as Real Big Toby. Despite not being exceptionally large for a husky or malamute, he exuded a captivating beauty that captivated everyone who crossed his path. Real Big Toby possessed one striking blue eye and one deep brown eye, a charming contrast that never failed to astound people. Moreover, he had an endearing habit of engaging in conversations about his day, truly earning his reputation as a talkative companion. Real Big Toby's spirited nature reached a point where it seemed futile to leash him. I would instruct him to stay put when I went into class, expecting to find him napping or charming the ladies by the time I emerged. Even the dean of the college recognized Toby on a first-name basis, impressed by his charismatic demeanor to the extent that he began bringing his own dog to work after observing the charm of Real Big Toby. Residing in a mountain town, attending college, and being an avid mountain biker, I found Toby's companionship particularly ideal. He gladly accompanied us wherever we ventured, effortlessly traversing up to 30 miles in a day. With my mountain bike serving as my primary mode of transportation, Toby and I developed an incredible bond, deeply attuned to one another. Being a husky, his innate talent for running was unmistakable. He seemed born to embrace the thrill of the chase. Toby was an exceptionally well-behaved and attentive canine. He remained steadfastly by my side, responding to my commands with unwavering loyalty. At the local coffee shop, there was even a designated seat for him on the deck, requiring passersby to resist giving him a scratch if they wished to enter. Toby's endearing presence made him a familiar figure in our tight-knit community, and it seemed like everyone in town knew him on a first-name basis. Occasionally, during our mountain bike excursions, Toby and I would get momentarily separated, or he would become enthralled by a detour on the downhill trail. However, in our close-knit town, those instances were rare, and he always found his way back to me by the end of the day. The local police recognized him from around town, and even the pound had his detail on file, knowing that any calls concerning him should be directed to me. However, one fateful day, Toby went missing on his way down the hill. As the hours turned into days, my concern escalated. I began reaching out to the community, knowing all too well how quickly word spreads in a small town. After a week of agonizing uncertainty, a friend approached me with a lead. He claimed to have spotted Toby and managed to track down the person responsible, but alas, that individual never reached out to me. Determined to find answers, I embarked on a mission to locate this mysterious figure and finally received a breakthrough when I discovered he worked at the college. Aware of the potential ignorance people displayed when receiving an animal, I couldn't help but worry for Toby's well-being. He was an absolute specimen, his muscular form evident beneath his sleek coat. Maintaining his physical fitness was a priority, with a predominantly raw diet supplemented by only the finest kibble money could buy. Upon confronting the man who claimed ownership of Toby, he wasted no time in asserting his intention to keep my dog. "You neglect him. You don't even feed him properly. He'll be better off with me," he audaciously declared. Fury coursed through my veins. As fate would have it, this individual worked at the very same school I attended. Remembering that the dean shared a special bond with Toby, I realized I had an ace up my sleeve. I possessed the dean's personal contact information. Without hesitation, I dialed the dean's number that Saturday morning, and my call resulted in Toby being returned to me later that day. To add insult to injury, the audacious man and Toby arrived with a 50-pound bag of the lowest quality, store-brand dog food imaginable. "I got you this, so you can feed him," he insolently declared. My anger surged. Later, I discovered that this individual was overseeing a research project at the school, and it wasn't difficult to locate his office. With a well-devised plan in mind, I stormed into his workspace, fully intent on returning his inferior dog food and giving him a public dressing down in front of his colleagues. However, he was nowhere to be found. In that moment, I instinctively decided on the most fitting course of action. I upended the 50-pound bag of dog food on his desk, scattering its contents across his computer. Stacks of papers, until it formed a monumental mound atop his keyboard. It was an awe-inspiring sight, a visual representation of my contempt. Recognizing the importance of discretion, I shared my revenge tale solely with my trusted friends. Unbeknownst to me, the school initiated misconduct charges against me, and I found myself facing a hearing in front of a board comprising fellow students and staff. When questioned about the whereabouts of the dog food, I skillfully employed a calculated response. I was recounting the incident to a group of individuals, and one of them requested the bag. Regrettably, that was the last I saw of it. Astonishingly, all charges against me were dropped. However, the man who dared to attempt stealing real Big Toby faced far graver consequences. As it turned out, a mountain of dog food atop his research project did not sit well with the higher-ups. 2 days after the incident, he was unceremoniously dismissed from the college. Not only was he fired, but a restraining order was also issued against him, forcing the school to change the locks to the building. Lesson learned. Do not trifle with the mighty presence of real Big Toby. My school had a tradition, and I'm not sure if it's odd or not, but each year we had kind of a mini valedictorian award starting in middle school. I was in the gifted program, so several of us had 4.0s, so the award was given to whoever had the highest overall GPA on the 100-point scale. I have always been very competitive by nature, so I set my sights on winning this award in the 7th grade. However, there was a bit of competition. Let's call him Todd. Todd had really good grades as well, with the top spot usually bouncing back and forth between the two of us. It was so close that every single quiz, exam, and homework assignment had the potential to dethrone one of us while lifting the other. I had an average of 98, something as did he. Todd had a bit of an edge, however. See, Todd's mom was known for being a bully. She would yell, scream, berate, and openly mock any teacher who dared to give Todd a lower grade than me. But that isn't all. Todd's mom was also a teacher at our school. She would openly defy and berate her own colleagues should they not provide whatever grade she wanted for Todd. Now, usually the school would avoid giving a child a class with their mother, but sometimes this was unavoidable. Naturally, we ended up in a class with his mother as the teacher. This was a world history class, one which required several papers, tests, etc. By the end of the year, Todd and I had been neck and neck in this class. But I noticed something. I consistently outperformed Todd by several points on any objective learning assessments, fill-in-the-blank tests, multiple choice, etc. However, somehow Todd consistently outperformed me on written subjective learning assessments, papers, essays, etc. Being a young and ignorant kid, I just assumed he was better at writing. That is, until our final assignment rolled around, all our tests had been taken, all our quizzes and homework assignments graded, all our papers submitted and graded. The semester was functionally complete. I held a fraction of a point over Todd in the class, which put me overall ahead in the valedictorian race. But Mommy Dearest couldn't have that. So, with 3 days left of the year, she assigned a list-minute 2-page paper. Short and simple. I submitted mine and received a 95. Fair enough. I found out that Todd got a 100, just enough to put him ahead of me in the class and in the valedictorian race. I was frustrated, so I asked Todd to see his paper repeatedly, desperate to find ways to improve to better my chances the next year. He refused, again and again. Then I remembered. When his mom handed the papers back to us, she never gave one to Todd. He hadn't done the paper. It was purely an assignment contrived to put him ahead. Now comes the revenge. Our school had just transferred to a paperless gradebook system the year before, so this was the second year on it. The principal was determined to make this cost efficient, so after the first trial year, he didn't even bother restocking the teachers with physical grade books. That way, he could add the amount saved from physical books to the total amount that the new paperless system was saving the school. Now, during this time, I also worked. I had a family member who owned a small local ISP, and I would help out at every opportunity. I loved computers, and still do. Now, working with this family member equipped me with much more networking knowledge than other kids my age, and even most adults. I decided that with this power came great responsibility. I was going to right this grievous injustice. So I started digging. I got on a school PC and started going through the network. Turns out, the school had wanted to save as much money as possible while going paperless. So they didn't hire a professional technician, consultant, or anything. One of the dads just volunteered in exchange for a reduced tuition charge, private school. So this system was just a nightmare. There was no dedicated network for sharing grades. There was no password protection on any files. There were no administrative restrictions on any files. Nothing. What he did was just share a single directory on the headmaster's computer. That directory held the entire gradebook for each and every class of each and every grade, kindergarten through 12th grade. I thought this was too good to be true. Surely there was a backup somewhere. So I went to the school's port switcher, which was just in an unlocked closet. I checked around, expecting to see a server or a set of drives set to automatically back up whatever is shared on the network. Nada. Now I was in a rage. I had gone to the principal several times, pointing out that Todd's mom was abusing her position. She was bullying teachers to give her kid an edge. Her son would even brag about how he could get away with not doing homework in other classes because Mommy would make sure nothing came of it. But the principal had failed to act. He had declared that each teacher was sovereign in their classrooms. So long as nothing illegal happened, he would not intervene. He was a very unprincipled principal. So I made a decision to delete the nepotism happening. I couldn't just change my grades in her class. She monitored my average like a hawk. So I went nuclear. I went into that subdirectory and deleted every single file in it. But the principal had shared his whole user desktop directory. So I emptied the recycling. I completely wiped every trace of grading software on that computer because the idiot didn't even put a password on the computer. So from the desktop subdirectory, I was able to access everything. This was in the very last couple of days of school. There were no hard copies, gradebooks. There were no backups. There was nothing remaining to even prove that the school year ever occurred. On the final day of school, we get called into an assembly. The principal is visibly disheveled, shaken, and upset. Not even angry, just broken. He announced that the entire year of grades were totally lost. The school didn't know what to do because there were no hard copies. They couldn't recover the data because they cheaped out and didn't purchase a backup system. All they could do was reinstall the software. But on grading software, if there is no grade to input, then what does it default to when showing the grades of the students? A 100%? Every single student in that school got valedictorian of their class that year. 100% all around. Heck, even a few kids got enough of a boost from that final year that they got to graduate on time instead of being held back. Next year, we had a new principal. I was held slightly suspect since everyone knew of my tech background, but nobody could prove anything. Even the PCs in the computer lab didn't have usernames or passwords, so there was no way to link me to anything. That following year, security cameras and passwords were put in the computer lab. The cashiers in my university's cafeteria had those two-line checkout areas. You know, the ones that are made to shorten the line, not the number of people. The cashier takes the person on one side, then on the other one. I joined the line of 4 or 5 people. There's no left or right thing happening because it's like 8 p.m. We're just quietly in line. When I become the second person in line, about 3 or 4 people are after. Some guy walks up to the opposite side like it's his turn next. No one else seems to have a problem with this. I speak up and say, "Hey man, there are other people in line. You can't just step in front of them." He responds with something like, "There are 2 lines. No one was in this line." This entitled jerk starts to make me angry and I start laying into him. The cashier is starting to get uncomfortable and says, "I'll check you out before him." I do a quick think and reply, "Okay, as long as you check me out before him, I'm good." I go serene and the entitled jerk does too. I look at the person behind me and the next words that come out of my mouth are, "You can go next." I did this till the few people that were waiting patiently had gone through the checkout process. I paid for my food and thanked the cashier as we mutually smiled at each other. The jerk was still standing there all angry and red-faced. Double malicious compliance.